Hi, my name is Brooke Foster, and along with my partner, Cindy Navarrette, we have decided to do our term paper on the topic of analyzing the wage gap in the 21st century through the Oaxaca-Blinder Decomposition. The goals of our term paper include identifying different determinants of the wage gap, being able to compare the effects of social equity through the 21st century compared to the initial data provided to us in project number 2. Our next goal is to test the variable Hispanic for significance and examine those results. Finally, our main objective is to use the Oaxaca-Blinder Decomposition to test for the presence of discrimination in our model and thus further discovering additional contributors to the wage gap. Before we dive into the model, I'd like to go over some background information on our topic. The gender wage gap is described as the median income of men compared to the median income of women. There are many factors to consider when determining one's wage, such as education or experience, but unfortunately there still remains an existing wage gap. We are going to test for the presence of gender discrimination in the wage gap by using data from the National Longitudinal Survey of Youth 1997 from the year 2017. This data set is unique in that it follows the lives of a sample group of individuals that were initially interviewed in the year 1997 and had additional surveys conducted biennially. In order to see the relationship between wage and its determinants, we have created an equation that encompasses possible aspects of the wage gap. Our dependent variable will be the log of wage, and our independent variables will be as followed: age, education, marital status, union, Hispanic, and female. Given that our model is in semi-log form, the coefficient output that is generated will be viewed as a percentage change, either as a decrease or increase in wage. We expect the dependent variable wage to have a positive relationship with the variables age and education. We then expect wage to have a negative relationship with the remaining variables based on possible discrimination and the findings in Oaxaca's report on the decomposition of wage differentials. In Table 2, we are presenting the descriptive statistics from our dataset, which displays the mean, standard deviation, minimum, and maximum of each variable. We have split the table into 3 columns, the first depicting the full model, which includes both male and female data, the second column which displays only female data, and the third that is exclusively male data. According to our chart, the average wage for both male and female is $48,498, and the average age in our dataset is 35 years old. When compared side by side, it is clear that men receive a higher median wage, and there is a wage gap of $12,960 that is in favor of men. Table 3 displays the correlation matrix for all variables. The key relationships we are choosing to explore are wage versus education, wage versus Hispanic, and wage versus female. The relationship between wage and education has a correlation coefficient of 0.306, which depicts a weak yet positive relationship, which is consistent with our expectations. The relationship between wage and Hispanic has a correlation coefficient of negative 0.0328, which depicts a weak and negative relationship. Additionally, wage versus female has a correlation coefficient of negative 0.228, which also represents a weak and negative relationship. The finding of these 2 relationships are also consistent with our expectations.
We created 3 regression models. The first is the full model, which has no restrictions. All the variables are statistically significant except for age and Hispanic. Wages will increase by 6.53% per additional year of schooling. As for females, they have a lower wage than males by approximately 38.4%. Workers that are married have a wage higher by 19%, which is quite the opposite of what we were expecting. Overall, the model explains 17.2% of the variation in annual wages. The second model is a female model, which was controlled to display only female worker data. The only significant variable is education. Female workers' wages will increase by approximately 9% per additional year of education. The female model explains 16.9% of the variation in wages. The third and last model is the male model, which displays only male worker data. The variables that are significant are education, union, and marital status. A male's wages will increase by 4.43% per additional year of education. As for union workers, they have a higher wage by 14.2%. Lastly, married male workers earn 31.8% more than single male workers. The model explains 12.7% of the variation in wages. The main topic we wanted to analyze is the wage gap. So with the Oaxaca-Blinder Decomposition, we were able to differentiate the wage gap into the skill-based differences and discrimination-based differences. The endowment is negative 0.0763, which is in effect attempting to bring down the wage gap. However, since the due coefficient is relatively large at 0.3647, the wage gap is still very much there, largely due to discrimination. There are a few limitations to our project, mainly as a result of the data. The age group range in our data is very compact, due to the nature of the NLS. However, in order to further our research, we would need to expand to a wider age range. Also, finding data from the same individuals across time with the wide age and race range would also be beneficial in furthering this analysis. In conclusion, we have two key findings. The first is the impact of the variable Hispanic. In this data set, it seems that it is not significant. In order to see the true effect of race on wages, we would consider creating a regression analysis with a wider range of races and seeing the significance. The second key finding is that the wage gap is due to discrimination. There are various policies and/or reforms that could be made to reduce this. Examples include eliminating the barriers to entry for females in male-dominated fields and having nationwide maternal-paternal leave.